Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine being stranded on a mysterious island, adrift and alone,
Yeah.
only to discover that its inhabitants are something far stranger and far more terrifying than you could ever possibly imagine.
It's quite the hook.
It is. We are diving deep today into a classic, pretty unsettling account.
We're looking at the narrative of Edward Prendick. He's this gentleman who somehow survived a shipwreck, the Lady Vane,
Right.
and finds himself washed up, well, not washed up, but deposited onto an island that just seems to defy reality. His story comes to us from papers found years later.
Right. And initially, when he was picked up at sea, finally, his account was largely dismissed. People thought he was, well, demented.
Or maybe had a memory lapse, yeah.
Exactly. Especially because the island he described, Noble's Isle, he thought it was, well, later surveys showed it was completely uninhabited.
Except for some, moths and fungi, maybe some strange white moths Prendick himself mentioned, but certainly no, beast people.
No sign of the bizarre creatures he talked about.
Yeah. And yet, there are these fascinating, stubborn little facts that kind of lend weight to his tale.
Like what?
Well, for instance, a schooner called the Ipecacuanha. It did exist. It sailed from Africa with a known drunken captain, John Davies, and it carried a cargo, including a puma and other animals. And this ship was known in the South Pacific, and crucially, it vanished around the same time Prendick suddenly reappears after being missing for, 11 months?
11 months, wow. So our mission in this deep dive is to go through this incredible, really disturbing account found among Prendick's papers.
Yeah.
We want to extract the key events, sure, but I think more importantly, understand the chilling implications. The science, the ethics, the very nature of humanity that Prendick witnessed on Dr. Moreau's island.
What did he actually see, and what does it tell us about, us?
Let's start at the very beginning of Prendick's ordeal. It's already horrific before he even gets near the island.
Oh, absolutely.
Huh.
He's adrift in a dinghy after the Lady Vane sinks, one of only 3 survivors.
Just 3.
And they're facing extreme thirst, heat stroke, under this pitiless sun, barely any supplies. He describes this horrifying prospect of cannibalism.
Yeah, it gets pretty grim. His companions deteriorate over 8 days.
A truly brutal beginning, and somehow it only gets stranger from there.
It does. He's spotted, finally, and rescued.
Yeah.
But even the rescue itself is unsettling.
House.
He's pulled aboard this schooner, the Ipecacuanha, lifted up by this man named Montgomery. And he has this really vivid memory of seeing the extraordinary eyes of a dark-faced, misshapen man.
Mling. He turns out to be a mulling, right?
Exactly, mailing. And the schooner's cargo is immediately bizarre.
Prendick calls it an ocean menagerie, doesn't he? Caged animals everywhere. A
Yeah.
puma, a llama, these muzzled dogs.
Yeah, and Montgomery, who seems to be in charge of all this cargo, he's oddly evasive when Prendick asks him about it, just brushing him off.
And adding to the weirdness is the ship's captain, John Davies.
So the Prendick says he was just completely drunken, totally erratic.
There's that disturbing scene, isn't there? Where the dogs on deck suddenly go nuts ambling the misshapen man.
Yeah, and the captain starts yelling, and it somehow incites the dogs to actually attack Emling. And the sailors just watch.
They find it amusing, apparently. Montgomery has to step in and physically stop it. It just feels utterly chaotic, like the normal rules don't apply on this ship.
A hint of the world to come, maybe.
And that sense of chaos just escalates when they reach the island. Montgomery seems to have made arrangements for Prendick to land, but the captain...
The captain just flat out refuses. Calls Prendick, Mr. Shut Up!
Yeah, insists he be thrown overboard with the beasts and cannibals and worse than beasts. Just incredibly hostile.
Can you even imagine? You're rescued from certain death, brought all this way, only for the captain to just cut you adrift again near some unknown island.
It's awful. He's forced back into the dinghy, no oars, it's half full of water, no provisions.
Just left there. Floating near this mysterious shore, he describes feeling utter despair.
But in a strange way, that abandonment is what actually gets him onto the island.
How's that?
The islanders, the inhabitants, see him adrift. They actually take pity, it seems.
Oh.
They approach in a launch. And Prendick sees these strange, brutish-looking men in the boat, along with the same heavy cargo of animals and cases he saw on the schooner.
And on the beach, waiting for them, he sees this peculiar figure making odd movements. Grotesque, he calls him.
That's Moreau, Dr. Moreau himself.
Right. And the men in the launch, they handle the boat and unload it in this really awkward, unnatural way. Hints at their strange physicality, maybe.
Definitely. Prendick immediately feels suspicious. There's a locked enclosure on the island, a big one. and from inside it,
he hears these painful cries, awful screaming.
Montgomery tries to pass it off as just the puma he brought. But Prendick notes Montgomery himself seems visibly bothered by the noise.
So the pieces are starting to form, and it's deeply unsettling.
And that puzzle takes a really terrifying shape when Prendick starts putting things together. He finds some papers, maybe left by Montgomery.
They confirm his worst fears, right?
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Moreau, the name he hears. He's a notorious vivisectionist.
Yes, notorious. Actually driven out of England years before because of public outrage over his cruel experiments. There was this incident with a mutilated dog escaping his lab. It caused a huge scandal.
So let's pause there. You have this notorious scientist, infamous for unethical experiments on live animals.
Kicked out of England for it.
Now he's on a remote island.
Yeah.
There's a locked enclosure.
Yeah.
Strange, painful cries coming from it, and these physically odd, brutish men working for him.
What's the logical, horrifying conclusion Prendick starts to draw?
It leads him to that chilling question, is vivisection happening here? And not just on animals anymore.
Could it be happening on men?
It immediately forces you, the reader, and Prendick to consider the ethical boundaries of science.
Mm-hmm.
Where does the pursuit of knowledge stop?
Especially when it involves inflicting such suffering. Does it stop at all?
And that terrifying question gets an absolutely horrifying answer when Prendick accidentally glimpses inside Moreau's laboratory.
The House of Pain, as the Islanders call it.
Yeah. He sees blood in the sink, smells carbolic acid, disinfectant. And through an open doorway, he sees a creature bound to a framework.
Scarred, red, bandaged, and Moreau's face, white and terrible, looking over it.
It's the confirmation. It's happening.
Moreau's reaction to being discovered is immediate and violent.
Throws Prendick back into his room, locks him in. Furious. Terrified Prendick will ruin the work of a lifetime.
Which tells you everything about his priorities, doesn't it? The work above all else.
And when Prendick confronts him later, Moreau gives this chillingly cold, detached explanation.
It's not about malice, is it? It's pure, detached scientific curiosity, a fascination with the plasticity of living forms.
He utterly dismisses pain as a little thing, just an intrinsic medical advisor.
He even stabs himself with a penknife at one point, right? To show how little sensation there is in certain tissues, just highlights this terrifying detachment from suffering his own or others.
It's horrifying because it's so clinical. He explains his experiments, taking animals, pumas, apes, swine, dogs, oxen,
A whole range.
and transforming them, grafting tissues, altering their chemistry, modifying limbs and forms, trying to make them human-like.
And it's not just physical. He tries to implant fixed ideas, suppress their animal instincts. He uses methods akin to, like, moral education, even hypnotism.
Forcing a new nature onto them,
Yeah.
layered over their inherent animal selves.
But here's the kicker. The fundamental flaw Moreau himself admits, reluctantly.
What's that?
The stubborn beast flesh grows day by day back again.
So it doesn't stick.
No. No matter how much he cuts and shapes and conditions them, the creatures tend to revert. They slip back towards their original animal forms and behaviors. The core nature resists.
He's been on the island for 11 years doing this.
11 years. Refining techniques, learning from failures. He tells Prendick about previous, even more grotesque experiments, like a failed thing.
A thing.
Yeah, a limbless creature with a horrible face. It escaped, killed one of the Kanakas he'd brought with him, had to be hunted down and shot. Just horrific failures along the way.
So the beast people, as they're called, are the results of these years of awful work. They dread Moreau, obviously, and the House of Pain.
That's where they came from, and where he still treats them if they backslide. Prendick sees their existence as just a travesty, a mockery of a rational life.
And they're governed by this set of rules, almost like commandments. The law.
Taught to them by Moreau, maybe with help from a Kanaka missionary early on. It's an attempt to impose human behavior. Don't walk on all fours, don't hunt with teeth or claws, don't drink blood.
All the animal stuff.
Exactly, trying to force humanity onto them through prohibition.
Living among these creatures is understandably deeply unsettling for Prendick. He hates it, hates the experiments, hates the beast people themselves.
He desperately wants to escape, and his relationship with Montgomery gets strained, doesn't it?
Yeah, because Montgomery's been there longer. He's kind of isolated, maybe gone a bit native, you could say. He's become accustomed to them.
Shows them a kind of sympathy, even. Sees them as more than just failed experiments, perhaps.
Maybe. Prendick, though, he just sees the horror. He describes them in such vivid, unsettling detail.
Their bodies are all wrong, aren't they? Disproportionate, clumsy spines, hunched shoulders.
And their faces prognathous, he says, projecting forward. malformed ears. You can still see the leopard, the ox, the sow, the ape, the wolf in their features.
Their voices vary wildly. Their hands are often malformed, clumsy nails, no real sense of touch. They can't laugh.
Though the ape man has that disturbing titter, and he notes the sea males initially had a stronger sense of modesty, wore costumes, but even that's fading.
And despite Moreau's efforts, despite the law, the beast is always there, just under the surface, ready to flash out.
He sees creatures yawn and suddenly reveal these terrifying teeth, right? Scissor-edged incisors, saber-like canines.
Or female figures with cat-like slit pupils, or curved nails peeking out from their wraps, constant reminders of what they really are.
He recounts these early encounters outside the enclosure that really highlight this tension. Seeing a man drinking water on all fours.
Exactly like an animal, no attempt at human posture.
And finding that mangled rabbit carcass, head torn off. Clear sign that the hunting instinct, killing with teeth, it's still powerful.
And perhaps most disturbing is when he finds those three figures chanting and swaying, performing the ritual of the law.
Repeating the prohibitions. But he realizes, even as they chant about being men, there's this irresistible suggestion of their animal origins, a swinish taint in this group.
Saliva dripping from their lipless mouths, he notes. It makes you question the ritual itself. Is it real belief or just learned fear? Mimicry.
This chanting reinforces the law, not to go on all fours, that is the law. Are we not men?
But it's all enforced by fear, isn't it? Abject fear of Moreau and the House of Pain. That's the glue holding it together.
But the incident with the rabbit, and later seeing the hyena swine drinking its blood, clear signs the law's grip is weakening.
They're starting to revert, ignoring the rules, especially when Moreau, the ultimate threat, isn't right there watching them.
Shows how quickly imposed rules just crumble when the enforcement mechanism is gone, or even just looks away for a second.
And this decay, this instability, it's building. It sets the stage for the inevitable catastrophe.
The trigger event is the escape of the puma, right?
Oh.
The one Moreau is currently working on, his big project.
Exactly. It breaks out of the enclosure. Moreau and Montgomery go chasing after it. Prendick hears pistol shots yelling, "Chaos!"
Then Montgomery returns later, injured, distraught, says the beast people went mad, attacked them.
Mentions Milling being involved, his jaws all bloody, says he had to shoot some of the attacking beast men just to get away.
So Prendick, Montgomery, and Milling retreat into the ravine where the beast people live. They hear this tumult outside.
And they encounter a group of beast people who basically announce Moreau is dead, the House of Pain is gone, the authority is broken.
Completely shattered.
Yes.
And with Moreau gone, Montgomery just collapses.
He was already teetering, wasn't he? Descends into complete drunkenness, despair, confronts Prendick, gives up all hope.
And makes that choice to go back to the beast people. Abandons any idea of returning to normal life. Just gives in.
Prendick later finds Moreau's body. Amidst the dead animals in the burning enclosure, the House of Pain is literally going up in flames.
A symbolic end to his reign of terror. Then he finds Montgomery dying by a bonfire near the boathouse. Other dead bodies around, too.
Possibly those sailors from the Ipecacuanha who got left behind earlier. Another loose end tied up grimly.
Montgomery dies at sunrise. And Prendick realizes he's now utterly, terrifyingly alone on the island.
Alone with the beast people. Their masters are dead. The law, that thin veneer of order, is completely broken.
The immediate aftermath must have been chaos.
Total chaos, just as you'd expect. Some beast people are defiant, like the hyena swine. Others are just confused.
But some, like the loyal dog man, the St. Bernard man, actually show loyalty to Prendick.
Yeah, maybe transferring that ingrained need for obedience to the last remaining human figure. Or maybe some genuine attachment, who knows?
Prendick tries, desperately, to assert some authority. Uses bluff, his revolver, a whip, even pretends Moreau is still watching them somehow.
But he quickly realizes it's futile. The law's power came purely from fear of Moreau. And Moreau's gone, the fear is fading.
And without that enforcement, the reversion just accelerates dramatically, doesn't it?
Oh, completely. The human veneer just peels away. They lose speech, their bodies slump back towards animal forms, they return fully to animal behaviors.
He mentions the sloth thing going back to the trees, and chillingly, the hyena swine gnawing on the dead St. Bernard creature.
The experiment is utterly failed. Nature is reclaiming its own, violently.
Prendick is totally isolated now, increasingly terrified. He sleeps in this fortified den he makes of the ruins of the enclosure wall, always on edge.
His efforts turn entirely to escape. Building a raft becomes his sole obsession.
But he's, as he admits, incredibly unhandy. Faces huge practical problems, No decent rope, nothing to carry water in.
Spends weeks just struggling, watching his flimsy rafts fall apart, a period of real despair and futility.
Then, finally, a wonderful day, he spots a sail, way out in the distance.
Lights a signal fire, watches it approach. Desperate hope, you imagine.
The boat arrives.
Yeah.
But in this final grim twist that just underscores the decay and death saturating this story.
2 men aboard are long dead, just drifted there, like him.
And one of them has red hair, a dirty white cap. It's Captain Davies from the Ipecacuanha.
That grim detail, it actually confirms another piece of Prendick's unbelievable story, strangely enough, the fate of the captain.
Prendick uses this grim salvation, finds water, provisions on the boat, gets it seaworthy as best he can.
And finally escapes the island, just desperate to be rid of the beast people, the horror, everything.
He drifts for 3 days before being picked up by a brig. But his story.
Predictably, no one believes him. The captain, the mate, they think he's mad. Who would believe such a tale?
So, to avoid being locked up, basically, he decides to feign amnesia about the whole island experience.
But the memory haunts him. Forever. The echoes of the law being chanted, the dead sailors, the ambushes, the bodies.
His psychological state, when he gets back to London, back to humanity, is profoundly disturbed. He finds it incredibly difficult to interact with people.
Starts seeing human faces differently, doesn't he? Not as individuals, but as potentially animalistic. Empty, potential beast people in disguise.
He feels totally alienated, questions his own sanity, describes himself as being like a sheep stricken with GID. That's a brain disease causing disorientation.
This deep alienation leads him to withdraw completely from society. Lives in solitude.
Surrounds himself with books, chemistry, astronomy. He finds solace, hope, not in human interaction anymore.
Which now feels alien unsettling because he sees the potential beast lurking in everyone.
But in the predictable, vast, and eternal laws of matter, in the cosmos.
It's such a powerful statement, isn't it? He rejects the messy, unpredictable, potentially monstrous nature of life and humanity that he witnessed, seeks refuge in the unchanging, indifferent universe.
It really makes you wonder, what does truly separate the animal from the human? And where can we find genuine solace, genuine order in a world that seems so prone to chaos and reversion?
So let's just recap this insane journey. Edward Prendick goes from shipwreck survivor to accidental witness of horrifying scientific hubris.
And to the reluctant, very brief ruler of these terrifyingly altered creatures.
And ultimately to a man alone, forever changed, forever alienated by his experience on that island.
Prendick found refuge in the predictable laws of the universe, as you said, because the unpredictable nature of life, especially human nature or its potential for regression, had just proven too terrifying.
Yeah, Moreau's scientific quest for order in biology failed catastrophically, unleashing chaos. So Prendick looked outwards to the stars.
It leaves you with some really chilling questions raised by Moreau's Island. What defines humanity? Is it just biology? Is it reason? Morality? How thin is that veneer of civilization Moreau tried to artificially impose?
And what happens when that stubborn beast flesh, that inherent nature, reclaims its hold? Is it always lurking?
And maybe the final lingering thought. Moreau's science, which aimed at understanding and controlling life, didn't alleviate pain or suffering at all. It created new, unimaginable forms of horror.
Prendick, seeing the chaos this kind of science unleashed, turns to the cold, predictable order of the stars for comfort. So does science always explain away pain and suffering? Or can it sometimes, especially when it's divorced from ethics and empathy, create new, profound sources of anguish and alienation? Something to ponder, definitely.